All right, hello everybody, and once again it is time for an Advocacy with Adam. It is June of 2025, and I'm I am embarrassed that the floats are still hanging in the ceiling here in the hangar, and the mall is still on wheels. There's a good explanation for that. The other aircraft that I operate, a Cessna 206, doing things outside the Airmen's Association, we found out the importance of inspections. And so it is down for some major repairs. We found some cracks and a bulkhead. And so I'm having to kind of fall back to the mall for all my operations, and I need to keep that on wheels in the meantime. So that's the explanation for the floats up there. I know that caused a question, whether or not I'll actually fly that airplane on floats. And I do, but just not so far this summer. So anyway, thought I'd change up the mix just a little bit this month. First of all, let me say thank you to all the folks that watched last month's Advocacy with Adam, as I did a little bit of a different, take on doing the update, where it was more of a PowerPoint presentation that I'd been giving with the help of a few other folks at a lot of different venues early on in the spring about the Anchorage Class Charlie update. So I got a lot of views on that update, still getting folks watching that every week. And so I can give you a little bit of an update on that project. Actually, this morning, I reviewed what I hope to be the final version of our recommendation letter to the FAA. That would be from the ad hoc committee. And we are continuing to work through that process. The goal, the hope, is to have that recommendation to the FAA, maybe even by the time you watch this, if not within the next couple of days. So what does that mean for the process moving forward? Where are we, and what's the next steps? Well, the next steps would be the FAA goes back and reviews our recommendations, see what they can do to accommodate those things, and then rework their proposal for the airspace design in Anchorage. Best guess is that it would come out to the public sometime in September of this year. So pay attention for social media updates, emails to the Alaska Airmen's membership, and other outlets where you can find out more about the public process that the FAA will be starting sometime this fall. So we'll be, again, updating you on that, getting you prepared for that process, helping you work through what possible comments you might like to make as we continue to work through that. So again, very long process for this airspace review. It's been going on for several years now, and this ad hoc committee process is pretty much completed, and now it's back into the FAA's hands. So we'll see what they can do with those recommendations. Hopefully they'll be able to accommodate most of those, if not all of them, and we'll have a product to review again in the fall. A couple of notice of proposed rulemaking that have come out. One has not actually hit the streets yet. It's expected any day now, but one hit the streets late last night, early this morning. And we'll talk about a couple of those right quick. So, Class E airspace here in Alaska. If you're familiar with the airspace, and if you pay attention to the airspace, you know that we have large areas of Class G airspace way above what would normally be Class Echo. Most places in the lower 48, Class Echo starts at 1,200 feet everywhere. Not so here in Alaska. We have large expanses of Class G that go way, way higher than 1,200 feet above the surface. And the reason for that historically has been that the FAA doesn't have communication coverage, and they don't have surveillance coverage of that airspace. And so if they can't talk to you, and if they can't know where you are, it's kind of hard to say that they can control it. Well, the FAA is hoping they can change that. They're hoping that they can change back to what would be normal in the lower 48, to where Class Echo would then drop down to 1,200 feet for all of Alaska, including all the way to 12 miles offshore in the coastal areas of Alaska. I did a quick read-through of this notice of proposed rulemaking, and it appears that they're doing this so that they can have controlled airspace, so they can make it easier for IFR operations in what has historically been uncontrolled airspace. And so that proposal is to accommodate that. I have some serious questions, and I'll just go ahead and say concerns about that proposal. And we're going to study that proposal a whole lot more, and I'll put you a link in the description how to find that notice of proposed rulemaking in the Federal Register, so you can read it yourself, and then you can get back to me and let me know your opinion of what the FAA is proposing. Here's my concern. If we lose Class G airspace, that means we no longer have the ability to fly with 1 mile visibility and remain clear of clouds above 1,200 feet. Now, in vast expanses of Alaska, where there is no infrastructure, there is no ability to get an IFR clearance if you even wanted one. And if you asked for one in a GA aircraft like the one sitting behind me, even though it is very well equipped to IFR, even with an autopilot, crazy to think that a mall would have an autopilot, but I can fly full-on RNAV approaches coupled to the autopilot in this aircraft behind me. I would like to fly IFR in this aircraft right here, but I simply can't in a large part of this state because the FAA, because of a lack of communication and a lack of surveillance, continues to raise the MEAs for the routes and for the minimum obstacle clearance altitudes, the MOCAs, and push it up so high that I can't fly it in this aircraft. It pushes me into the ice, or it pushes me into the flight levels where now I have oxygen requirements. It's not a practical airplane to do that with. Now, in the summertime, here in the interior, we have smoke. We're getting smoke from Canada even in the past few days blowing into the interior. Thankfully, not to the point where it's made things IFR, but if I wanted to fly IFR in this aircraft to get home in the smoke, a lot of times I would have to get higher, deeper into the smoke to get a clearance to be able to come back to shoot an approach back to my home airport because of the lack of common surveillance. Now, part of it also is the lack of controlled airspace, although Anchorage Center routinely issues instrument clearances for folks to operate in uncontrolled airspace. There's ways that they can do that. So the FAA is saying that they would like to have this controlled airspace so they can actually make it easier to do these things. Here's my concern. It won't make it easier. It will actually make it more difficult for folks like ourselves operating these types of airplanes in Class G airspace because that will go away. So if I wanted to get a clearance, I couldn't even get it. I couldn't fly at the altitudes that I want. And so it seems to be an imbalance in what the FAA is saying and what they ask for and what they need. And I hope that we can come to a point where we can have a discussion about that between industry and the FAA. I was hoping that was going to happen before this NPRM was released. It didn't, but if you want to have it controlled airspace, but yet you don't have communication and surveillance to cover that airspace that you're getting, which now is going to exclude VFR operations who historically have been able to do that legally because of remaining 1 mile clear of clouds and having 1 mile visibility. How is that going to be better for operators like myself and like most of you in aircraft just like this? I don't think that it will be. I think it will be a loss of operational capabilities, and I'll even go so far as to say it'll be a loss of safety for operators like myself and like most of you. So it's a little frustrating that the FAA, the saying, you want your cake and you want to eat it too. Well, it seems like the FAA wants my cake and they want to eat it because they're going to take Class G away from us if this proposal goes through. Now, it's not going to go away everywhere. It's just going to be down to Class Echo is going to be all the way down to 1,200 over vast expanses of the state where today it's Class G. So again, I'll put the link to the proposal in the description. Please read through that. I know it's going to be hard to read through because it's a lot of government ease and legal language, but it's important that you read through that. If you have questions about it, contact me and I'll help you kind of understand what they're saying, give me your feedback on it, because I will be preparing a comment letter. By the way, those are due August 1st, so please consider writing a comment letter on this proposal. And when you do, please copy the Airmen's Association so we know that we are accurately representing our membership and your concerns. So another proposal that should hit the streets any day now. We actually expected it last week and it didn't happen, so maybe it's this week that it's coming out. But the beyond visual line of sight, Part 108, for uncrewed aircraft or remotely crewed aircraft, we keep changing the nomenclature when we talk about drones. It used to be unmanned vehicles, UAVs, UAS, unmanned aerial systems, unmanned aerial vehicles. Now they're saying uncrewed. Well, now that no, they're still crewed. They're just remotely crewed. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. What generally referred to by the public as drones. The rules for beyond visual line of sight operations, meaning the person controlling that aircraft cannot physically see it. And so it would be operating beyond their visual line of sight. So how does that work? What does that look like? How do the right-of-way rules play? How does the whole notion of see and avoid, how does that play out when you can't see the aircraft system that you're operating? So a lot of very good questions, a lot of big concerns. And this proposal, when it comes out, we're going to need to read through that and be prepared to comment. Here's my concern. Up till now, the things that we've been hearing coming out of some of the committees and focus groups and meetings that have been going on about this Part 108. Well, a lot of the folks involved in the drone industry, and again, I'm using that term very broadly, do not have an aviation background. And you know what? That's actually pretty awesome that they don't have an aviation background on one aspect, because they're bringing in some fresh ideas that those of us who've been in aviation all our life, all our career, hadn't thought of. But because they are thinking outside the box, because they've been outside the box, they're coming up with some pretty cool technology and integrating that into aviation. Here's the problem, though. A lot of those people don't understand some of the basic building blocks of our safety systems. They don't understand the right-of-way rules and the reason why they're written the way they are, how the slower, less maneuverable aircraft has a right-of-way over the more maneuverable aircraft. So those things we all know, those of us who have been involved in aviation, we know that the regulations, for the most part, are written in someone's blood. They're written because we did it a different way before. Somebody died, we reevaluated our operations, and we changed because we don't like it when our friends die. Now, when you come into an industry and you don't know those things, you haven't been, integrated into that thought process, and you question those things. And questioning them is awesome. They should be questioned. They should hold up to scrutiny, these rules and regulations. But to say, as an industry coming into aviation, we want you to accommodate us, meaning maybe you should all equip with ADS-B so we can electronically sense where you are and avoid you. No, sorry. No other time in aviation that I know of, and no other instance that I've been able to find, has the entire industry equipped with some part of a new technology or totally changed their operations to accommodate somebody else's operations. It's always been the opposite. If I want to go in and do something different, if I want to go in and do something new, I would have to figure out how that could work with the existing rules, maybe modifying them a little bit, but not wholesale changing the rules and making everybody else accommodate me. That's not the way it works. But yet that's kind of what our fear is with Part 108, and I'll admit we haven't seen it yet. We've been able to know what the FAA's been working through and thinking about. We know what the recommendations have been from the other side of the table, and that's what we're going to be looking for when we see this proposal come out and hit the streets. Again, I'm hoping that it comes out soon, within the next week, and I'll be reading that and reviewing that and letting you know what we need to be concerned about. So speaking of equipping with ADS-B, you remember, you may have seen it, that I wrote a comment letter to the FAA about the public registry, aircraft registry database, and how they were asking for comments on whether or not personal identifying information should be removed from the public side of the aircraft registry. That is something that the Airmen's Association fully supports, and that no other mode of transportation can you look up a person's home address based off of their registration number, and that's an invasion of privacy that we'd like to see closed. It also does have a correlation and a tie-in to ADS-B equipage, because in my conversations with all of you throughout the years, at least since 2020 and beyond, even further back than that, as we were talking about ADS-B early on back in the day of Capstone, that kind of dates me a little bit, but privacy has always been the major concern. Cost is mentioned, aircraft electrical systems, being able to accommodate the load even if you have an electrical system. But through all of those conversations, when you really boil it down to, and you ask somebody what is the primary reason why you have not equipped, the vast majority of you tell me it's because of your privacy that you're concerned about. Whether it's privacy from prying eyes of the internet and the whole world being able to track you for free on public websites and set up notifications that you would get a text message every time your aircraft takes off. That's a little creepy. Even to whether or not the FAA should be able to use ADS-B data to initiate investigations or as part of investigations. And so we've made some headway with a lot of these areas, but then there are still loopholes that are invasions of our privacy that have not been tolerated in other sectors of society here in America. So I wrote a comment letter about the public information on that registry and tied it to a safety concern dealing with ADS-B and to the Anchorage Class Charlie airspace. A copy of that letter will be in the next issue of the Transponder, which will be hitting the streets in the coming weeks, and you'll be able to read our comment letter there and see how we are advocating for you on that issue of privacy. Again, speaking of ADS-B coverage, some exciting news. Not everything is all bad and tinfoil hat when it comes to ADS-B. I will include a couple of slides here in the presentation about some new expanded coverage of the ADS-B ground station network. And the reason why this is great and important is because now we have more areas of the state where we can receive that information. We can receive that FISB data, Flight Information Service broadcast. We can receive the weather radar, the METARs, the NOTAMs, all those things that come in to ADS-B in that a lot of people have with a portable device. The goal and the intent of the FAA was to get what they would consider complete coverage at 10,000 feet. Well, they've come back and they said their goal is to get it at 7,500 feet, and I'll include a graphic that shows you what that coverage is at 7,500 foot MSL. I'll also include a graphic here that shows coverage at 1,000, 3,000, and 5,000 foot MSL. Now, two of the stations that are depicted here have not come online yet. The goal is for Galena and Coldfoot to come online sometime this fall or early winter. But the other stations that you see that you may not have known about, like Kodiak and out towards Glen Allen and Tok and Fort Yukon and a few other places, those have come online, and you should see an increase in coverage, and these graphics will help you kind of figure out where that is. I want to say thank you to the Surveillance Broadcast Services Office, the SBS office of the FAA, for coming up with these graphics. And for taking our recommendation that these graphics need to be in MSL, not AGL. Early on in the program, for a long time, these graphics have been depicted in AGL. Now, from an engineering perspective, that's important. But how many of us fly reference to AGL? We don't set our altimeters to AGL, we set our altimeters to MSL. And when we're flying along, we want to know what the graphic would tell us in reference to MSL. So thanks to those folks there at the SBS office for taking our feedback and recommendation and changing their graphics to MSL, which seems rather small and insignificant, but in the grand scheme of things actually helps with being able to have better situational awareness about where you can receive this data. So those are about the list of topics that I had to cover this month, and we're coming up on the end of our time. And again, I thank you for watching these every month. I know some of you get notifications when this is released. Some of you listen to this on your commute into work. Others tell me that you watch it before you go flying after they're released to kind of find out what the latest and greatest is. And it's all segments of the aviation industry have gotten back in touch with me and told me that they watch. So again, thank you for that. It's good to have you part of the mix, and thank you for your feedback. And again, look forward to keeping you updated. If you have any questions or comments, you'll be able to communicate with me back through the channel here on YouTube. And my email address is out there on our website, as well as a way you can reach me by phone. So go to alaskaairmen.org and find out more about the Alaska Airmen's Association. And if you're not a member, please consider joining. Adding your voice to the thousands of others that are members already helps us when we go and advocate for your concerns and your needs to safely access and protect and promote general aviation here in Alaska. So thanks for your support, and we'll talk to you later.